The night was cold. The sky above was dark, filled with smoke and broken stars. A human soldier walked slowly across the battlefield. His boots pressed against ashes, broken metal, and the silent remains of a war that had ended only hours ago. His uniform was torn, and his face showed hunger and pain. He carried nothing but a small pack on his side. Inside that pack was his last meal, a simple ration bar, dry and tasteless, but enough to keep him alive for one more day. He touched it often, as if to remind himself it was still there. Hunger burned in his stomach and weakness pulled at his steps, but he forced himself forward. The war between humans and the alien race had left nothing but ruins. Cities were destroyed, forests burned, rivers poisoned. The soldier had survived longer than most, but he knew he would not last much more. His body needed food, his mind needed rest. He thought of home, of Earth, of a time when meals were warm and laughter was normal. But that world felt very far away now. The silence was heavy. Only the sound of his breathing and the crunch of his boots filled the night. He looked around, always alert, afraid that enemy scouts might still be nearby. His hand never left the grip of his broken weapon. Then, suddenly, a voice. It was soft, weak, almost like a whisper carried by the wind. "I'm hungry," the soldier froze. His heart jumped. He quickly looked around, his eyes scanning the dark ruins. Who had spoken? Was it a trick? An enemy trying to lure him? His hand tightened on his weapon as he listened again. Once more the voice came. Fragile, trembling, almost too small to be real. "I'm hungry." The sound came from behind a collapsed wall, near the shadow of a broken tower. Slowly, carefully, the soldier moved closer. His steps were silent, his eyes sharp. He expected a trap. He expected danger. But what he found was something he had never imagined. There, hidden under pieces of broken stone, was a tiny alien girl. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes large and shining like liquid silver. Her body was thin, fragile, as if she had not eaten for many days. She looked no older than a human child of 8 years. Her clothes were torn, her small hands shaking as she tried to push away the heavy rocks. The soldier froze again. This was the enemy. The aliens who had fought humans for years. The aliens who had burned cities and taken countless lives. He should hate her. He should turn away. That was the rule of war. But when her eyes lifted to his, something broke inside him. She was not a monster. She was not a soldier. She was just a hungry child. The girl looked at him, fear shining in her silver eyes. She did not scream. She did not attack. She only whispered again, her voice weaker than before. "I'm hungry." The soldier's hand went to his pack. He felt the last ration bar pressing against his fingers. His heart pounded as he realized what this meant. If he gave it to her, he would have nothing left. No food, no strength. His own life would end sooner. But if he kept it, the little alien girl would surely die. The silence stretched. The soldier looked at her small body trembling in the cold. He saw her lips dry and cracked, her eyes begging without words. He thought of his own childhood, of nights when his mother had given him her own meal so he would not go hungry. He remembered the warmth of sacrifice, the meaning of kindness. Slowly, with shaking hands, he reached into his pack. The ration bar came out. Hard, small, wrapped in thin silver foil. It was not much, but to the starving it was life itself. The girl's eyes widened when she saw it. Her body leaned forward, but she stopped, unsure if he would really give it. The soldier knelt down. He placed the ration bar in front of her, his eyes steady, his voice calm but firm. "Take it," he said. The girl stared. Her small hands hesitated, then slowly reached out. She grabbed the meal, holding it close as if it were a treasure. With shaking fingers, she opened the wrapper and began to eat. Each bite was small, careful, almost worshipful. She chewed slowly, tears falling from her silver eyes. For the first time in days, food touched her lips and life returned to her fragile body. The soldier watched in silence. His stomach twisted with hunger, but in his heart there was a strange peace. He knew he had given away his last chance at survival, but seeing her live, even for one more day, felt right. The girl looked at him, her mouth still chewing. She whispered softly, almost like a promise, "Thank you." And in that moment, under the broken sky, among the ashes of war, a bond was born between a human soldier with nothing left and a small alien child with everything to lose. The soldier did not know what would come next. Danger still surrounded them, hunger still waited. But something had changed. The war had taken so much, but here, In this small act of kindness, something new was beginning. The story of survival was no longer his alone. The night grew colder. The ruins around them stood like silent giants, broken and sharp against the sky. The human soldier sat on a piece of stone, his body weak, his stomach empty. Across from him, the small alien girl ate slowly, piece by piece, as if afraid the food might disappear before she finished. She held the ration bar with both hands, small fingers trembling. Every bite brought a soft sound, half relief, half sadness. Her silver eyes lifted to him often, watching as if she still could not believe he had given it to her. The soldier said nothing. His face was calm, but inside his chest his heart was heavy. That was his last meal. Now he had nothing. His hunger grew sharper, but he pushed it down. He had made his choice. For a moment the world felt quiet. No gunfire, no screams, no orders. Only the soft sound of chewing and the cold wind that moved through broken towers. When the girl finished, she licked the last crumbs from her fingers. Then she lowered her head, almost shy, and whispered in a voice so small it was nearly lost in the wind. "Why?" The soldier blinked. "Why what?" Her silver eyes stared into his. "Why give food, you?" "Hungry too." He looked at her for a long moment. His lips parted, but words came slowly, heavy like stones. "Because you needed it more?" The girl tilted her head, confused. In her world, kindness was rare. She had been taught that humans were cruel, that they destroyed, that they never shared. But this man, this enemy, had given her life. "Human," she said softly, testing the word like it was strange on her tongue. "You, not like others." The soldier gave a faint smile, though his eyes were tired. "Maybe I'm just stupid." For the first time, the girl laughed. It was a small, broken laugh, but it was real. The sound surprised him. He had not heard laughter in so long. It warmed the night in a way no fire could, but warmth did not last. Hunger was already crawling deeper into his body. His chest ached, his head grew light. He leaned back against the stone wall, breathing slowly. The girl noticed. She came closer, her small steps careful, her thin body swaying with weakness. She touched his arm with her trembling hand. "You okay?" The soldier looked down at her. Her touch was gentle, almost like a child's hand on a broken toy. He wanted to tell her the truth, that he was not okay, that he was weaker now, that he had given up his last chance for food. But instead he nodded once. "I'll be fine," the girl frowned. Even in her young mind, she knew this was a lie. She pulled back, sitting close to him now, her silver eyes never leaving his face. Minutes passed. The silence of the battlefield felt heavy again. In the distance, a sound echoed. Metal steps, faint voices. The soldier's body tensed. Enemy scouts. He raised a finger to his lips, signaling her to stay quiet. She nodded, her small body curling into the shadows beside him. The footsteps grew closer, then paused. He could hear alien voices speaking in their rough language. His hand gripped his broken weapon, though he knew it would not fire. His heart beat hard, each second loud in his ears. The girl leaned close, whispering in her own tongue, words he could not understand. But her eyes spoke for her. She was afraid. The soldiers outside moved again, their shadows passing across the cracks in the wall. For a long moment it seemed they might come in, might find them. But at last the voices drifted away, fading into the night. The sound of metal steps grew softer, then was gone. The soldier let out a slow breath. The girl pressed her small body closer to his, seeking safety. He did not push her away. When silence returned, she whispered again, this time in broken human words. "You safe." "I safe." The soldier looked down at her. He did not know what fate awaited them. He had no food, no strength. But he saw her eyes shining with trust, with hope. That trust was something stronger than hunger. He placed a hand gently on her small shoulder. "I'll keep you safe," he said, his voice steady, though his body trembled. Her silver eyes widened, tears rising. She nodded slowly, as if his words were a promise she believed more than anything. The night moved on. They stayed close, two figures in the ruins, an enemy soldier and a small alien child. Different worlds, different blood, yet bound by a single act, the gift of a last meal. Neither of them knew it yet, but that gift was not just food. It was the beginning of something greater. It was the seed of trust, the seed of hope, and maybe the seed of peace. The dawn came slowly, gray light spilling over the ruins. The soldier opened his eyes after a restless night. His body was weak, his stomach empty, but he was still alive. Beside him, the alien girl slept, curled like a small bird, her head resting against his arm. For a moment, he simply watched her. She looked peaceful in sleep, though her thin frame showed the hunger and pain she had suffered. In another time, in another world, she could have been just a child playing under the sun. But war had taken that away. The soldier moved his arm carefully so she would not wake. He stood, his legs heavy, and looked at the broken horizon. Smoke still rose from faraway fires. The world was not safe, and yet, as he looked back at the girl, he felt something stir inside him. A reason to keep going. When she woke, her silver eyes blinked open. For a moment, she looked afraid, as if she expected to be alone again. But when she saw him standing nearby, her face softened with relief. She whispered, "You?" "Still here," he nodded. "I'm not leaving you." The girl smiled faintly, her small teeth showing. She sat up, brushing dust from her torn clothes. Her stomach growled loud in the silence. She looked down in shame, her hands pressing against her belly. The soldier's heart tightened. He had no food left to give, but he could not let her starve. He reached down and offered his hand. "Come, we'll find something." She looked at his hand for a long time, as if unsure. Then slowly she placed her small fingers in his. The connection was fragile, but it was real. Together they walked through the ruins. The soldier kept his eyes sharp, scanning for danger. The girl stayed close, her steps quick to match his long strides. Sometimes she stumbled, and each time he steadied her, his hand firm on her shoulder. As they moved, she tried to speak. Her words were broken, mixed with her own language, but he understood pieces. "My name?" "Ori," she said, tapping her chest. The soldier nodded. "Ori," he pointed to himself. "Daniel," she repeated it, her voice soft. Daniel. For the first time in days, Daniel felt his name had meaning again. They continued walking. Along the way, Ori began pointing at things, naming them in her language. A broken tower, a piece of metal, the sky. She would look at him expectantly, waiting for him to say the human word. He played along, speaking slowly so she could copy him. "Sky, high," she repeated. "Stone. Stone," she said, smiling proudly. Bit by bit, they built a bridge of words. It was simple, but it was theirs. Hours passed. The hunger grew stronger for both of them, but Ori's spirit seemed lighter. She hummed softly as she walked, a tune from her world. Daniel listened, the sound strange yet calming. But peace never lasted long. As they crossed what had once been a marketplace, Daniel froze. Ahead, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed. He pulled Ori close, hiding her behind a wall of shattered stone. 2 alien soldiers marched past, their armor shining, weapons ready. Daniel's hand moved to his broken rifle, though he knew it was useless. His heart raced as he held Ori still, his arm wrapped protectively around her. She looked up at him, her eyes wide with fear. He shook his head softly, signaling her to stay quiet. The soldiers' voices were harsh, their words sharp. Daniel could not understand them, but he felt the meaning. Patrol, search, capture. The footsteps came closer. Dust fell from the wall above them. Daniel pressed Ori closer, shielding her with his body. If they were found, he knew what would happen. The girl would be taken and he would be killed. But the patrol moved on. Slowly, the sound of their steps faded into the distance. Daniel let out a long breath, his heart still pounding. Ori clung to him, her small hands gripping his torn jacket. When she finally let go, her eyes shone with tears. "You, safe," she whispered. "You keep me safe." Daniel looked at her and nodded. "I promised, didn't I?" She stared at him for a long moment, then smiled through her tears. "Safe. Together." The words were broken, but they carried weight. Daniel sat down on a broken step, his legs weak. Ori sat beside him, pressing against his side. For the first time since the war began, he felt less alone. The bond between them was growing, stronger than fear, stronger than hunger. She was not just a stranger now. She was his responsibility, his reason to keep moving. As the sun set and the shadows grew long, Daniel looked at Ori and made a silent vow. He would protect her. He would keep her alive no matter the cost. And though he did not know it yet, Ori had made her own vow. In her heart, she promised that she would not leave him. That this human who had given his last meal would not face the darkness alone. 2 lives, 2 worlds now tied together, and in the ruins of war, a connection was born. The night fell again, darker than before. The air was cold, carrying the sharp smell of smoke and iron. Daniel and Ori found shelter inside the broken shell of an old building. Its walls were cracked, its roof half gone, but it kept the wind away. Daniel sat against the wall, his head heavy, his body weaker with every hour. Hunger was carving lines into his face and his breaths grew shallow. Ori sat close beside him, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. She hugged her knees to her chest, watching him. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You not eat." He smiled faintly, though his lips were dry. "I'll be fine," but he wasn't fine. Ori could see the truth. His strength was fading, and the kindness he had given her came at a cost. Still, he stayed awake, listening to the silence, always alert. The silence did not last long. From outside in the distance came the sound of marching, heavy metal boots striking the ground, steady and sharp. Then voices, harsh and cold, echoing through the ruins. Daniel's heart quickened. Enemy patrols. He moved quickly, placing a finger to his lips. "Quiet," he whispered. Ori nodded, her small body trembling. She pressed herself close to him, her breath fast and shallow. The footsteps grew louder. Shadows moved beyond the broken windows. Alien soldiers, tall, armored, armed with glowing rifles, were sweeping the area. Their voices carried through the night as they searched, words sharp like blades. Daniel's grip tightened on his useless rifle. He knew it would not fire, but instinct made him hold it anyway. His eyes flicked to Ori. She was shaking, fear filling her silver eyes. "Stay behind me," he whispered. She nodded, crawling closer, pressing against his back as if his body could shield her from the world. The sound of boots came closer, closer than before. Dust drifted down from the ceiling as the soldiers walked just outside the building. One of them paused. A harsh voice called out, and Daniel heard the metallic sound of a rifle being lifted. Ori gasped softly. Daniel's hand pressed gently over her mouth, his eyes hard, begging her to stay silent. Seconds stretched into long, painful moments. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest like a drum. Every breath felt too loud, too heavy. He thought of the end. If they were found, he knew what would happen. He would be killed, and Ori would be dragged away. But then, just as suddenly, the soldiers moved on. Their boots struck the ground again, fading slowly into the distance. The voices grew softer, swallowed by the night. Only silence remained. Daniel exhaled slowly, lowering his hand from Ori's mouth. She turned to him, her small face pale, her silver eyes wide with tears. Then, before he could speak, she threw her arms around him. "You protect me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Always protect." Daniel froze for a moment. Then he slowly wrapped his arms around her fragile body, holding her close. She was shaking like a leaf in the wind, but in his arms she grew still. "You're safe," he said softly. "As long as I breathe, you're safe." She clung to him tighter, her small hands gripping his torn jacket. "Together," she said, "safe. Together." Daniel felt something shift inside him. This was no longer just survival. This was a promise, a bond. And though he was weak, though his body cried for food, he knew he would fight for her until his last breath. Hours later, the patrols were gone, but the danger still lingered. Daniel and Ori stayed hidden inside the building, too afraid to move. He leaned back against the wall, exhaustion pulling at his body. Ori sat beside him, refusing to let go of his sleeve. In the silence, she began to speak again, her broken words soft. "On my world, human is monster, they say. Human kill, human take, but you give." Daniel looked at her, his eyes tired but steady. "Not all humans are monsters, just as not all of your kind are enemies." She tilted her head, thinking about his words. Then she gave a small smile, though her eyes were wet with tears. "Then maybe Story is wrong." Daniel chuckled weakly. "Maybe it is." For the first time since the war began, Ori felt hope. She leaned her small head against his arm, closing her eyes. And Daniel, though tired, stayed awake, watching the darkness beyond the broken window. He knew danger was never far. But for now, the girl beside him was safe, and that was enough. As the night deepened, Daniel thought of the gift he had given her. The last meal, the last of his strength. He realized it had not only saved her life, it had also saved his own soul. Because in this ruined world, in the shadow of war, he had found something worth protecting, and that was more powerful than hunger. The morning light spilled weakly across the broken city. Smoke rose in thin lines from the distance, and the air still carried the bitter smell of fire. Daniel moved carefully through the ruins, his body heavy with hunger. Each step was harder than the last. Ari walked close beside him, her small hand gripping the sleeve of his torn jacket, refusing to let go. They had survived the night, but survival was not enough. Food was gone and danger was everywhere. Daniel scanned the horizon with sharp eyes, always looking for movement, always listening for footsteps. Ari stayed silent, but her silver eyes were watching him with worry. At last they found shelter in an abandoned bunker half buried under rubble. Inside it was dark and cold but safe. Daniel sat against the wall, closing his eyes for a moment. Ari sat across from him, her small body curled tightly, as if protecting herself from unseen ghosts. The silence stretched until Ari spoke. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant. "Daniel, I tell you something." He opened his eyes, looking at her. "What is it?" She hesitated, biting her lip. Then she whispered, "On my world, they tell story, human. Eat children." Daniel's face froze. His heart skipped a beat. "What?" Ari nodded slowly, her silver eyes filled with fear and shame. "They say, human kill, take children for food, my people." Always afraid. Daniel felt a storm rise inside him. So that was what her kind believed. Lies painted by war. Stories told to create fear. His fists clenched, but not in anger toward her. Anger at the war that twisted truth into poison. He took a slow breath, calming himself. "And you? Do you believe that?" Ari looked down at the ground. Yes, when I see you first. I think you kill me, but..." She lifted her eyes, tears shining in them. "You give me food. You give me last food. You but protect me. Story is lie." Daniel's chest ached at her words. He had seen propaganda before. Humans painting aliens as monsters, aliens painting humans as devils. But to hear it from her lips, so innocent, so broken, it cut deeper than any blade. He leaned forward, his voice steady. "Listen, Ari, humans don't eat children. We protect them, at least the good ones do." She studied his face carefully as if weighing his soul. Then slowly she nodded. "I believe you. Because you keep me safe. You hungry, but still. Give me food. Monster cannot do that." For the first time in many days, Daniel felt something powerful stir inside him. Not anger, not despair, hope. He reached out, placing his hand gently on her small shoulder. "I don't know how many lies they told you, Ari, but I'll show you the truth. I'll show you what it means to be human." Her lips trembled into a smile. A fragile smile, but real. Truth, better than story. They sat in silence for a while, the weight of her confession settling between them. Daniel thought of his own people, of the children back on Earth. He thought of how war turned innocence into fear, how lies could last longer than bullets, and he realized that his choice, the simple act of sharing his last meal, was bigger than survival. It was a message. Ari broke the silence again, her voice small but steady. "Daniel, if others find us, if my people come, what happened?" He looked at her seriously. "They might try to take you. They might try to kill me." Her silver eyes filled with tears. She shook her head quickly. "No, I not let them. I tell them truth. I tell them. Humans save me." Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to believe her words would matter. That one small voice could change the hate of a whole world. But war was cruel. And yet, as he looked into her shining eyes, he could not bring himself to take away her hope. "Then tell them," he said softly. "Tell them the truth." Ari crawled closer, her small hands gripping his arm. "You promise? Stay with me?" He hesitated only a moment. Then he nodded. "I promise." Her smile grew wider, her tears falling freely now. She pressed her forehead gently against his arm, whispering words in her own language. Daniel didn't understand them, but he understood the feeling. Trust. As the hours passed, Daniel's hunger gnawed deeper, and exhaustion weighed heavy. But inside, something had changed. The bond between them was no longer just survival. It was trust built against lies, hope born from sacrifice, and Ori, the small alien girl who once believed humans were monsters, now believed in him. That truth was stronger than any weapon. The sky was red when evening came, painted with smoke and fire from battles far away. Daniel and Ori walked through the ruins slowly, searching for anything that could keep them alive. His steps were heavier than before, his body weak from days without food. Ari stayed close, holding his sleeve tightly, her silver eyes full of worry. Every corner carried danger. Sometimes they heard patrols in the distance. Sometimes the air carried the sharp hum of drones above. Daniel moved carefully, always keeping Ari behind him. His hands were empty, his broken rifle hanging useless on his back. But his body was a shield, and he had promised her safety. They reached the edge of the city as the sun began to sink. Ahead lay a wasteland of broken tanks, destroyed ships, and burned machines. But beyond that, Daniel's eyes narrowed. He saw movement. An enemy outpost. Soldiers guarded crates of supplies, food, and water stacked high. Daniel's empty stomach twisted painfully at the sight. He knew if they could reach those supplies, they might live. But the place was heavily guarded. Soldiers with glowing rifles paced back and forth, watchful and cold. Ari tugged on his sleeve. "Food?" she asked softly. He nodded slowly. "Yes, food, but dangerous." She looked at the guards and then back at him. Her small body shivered. "We cannot go." Daniel crouched beside her, his face serious. "Listen, Ari, I'll distract them. While they chase me, you run. Run to the crates. Take what you can and hide." Her eyes widened in shock. She shook her head fiercely. "No, I not leave you." Daniel put a hand gently on her shoulder. His voice was calm, though inside his chest fear twisted. "If I don't distract them, they'll see us. They'll kill us both. But if you go alone, small and fast, maybe they don't see you." Tears filled her eyes. "But you will die." He gave a faint smile. "Maybe, but you will live. And that's what matters." Ori's hands gripped his jacket tightly. "No, together. Safe together." His heart ached at her words. He wanted to promise her they would both survive. He wanted to believe it himself. But his body was weak and the odds were against them. He could barely stand, let alone fight. Yet as he looked into her silver eyes full of tears and trust, he knew the choice was no longer simple. She was not just a child. She was not just the enemy. She was hope. Hope that truth could be stronger than lies, hope that kindness could survive even in war. "Ori," he said softly, "sometimes we don't get to choose for ourselves. Sometimes we choose for others. That's what makes us human." She shook her head again, her tears falling freely. "Then I choose for you. I stay, I not leave." Her words hit him harder than any bullet. For days he had been protecting her, but now she was choosing to protect him. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. His hunger, his weakness, the danger, they all pressed down on him. But inside, something stronger pushed back. He opened his eyes again. "All right, then we do this together." Ari blinked, surprised. "Together?" He nodded. "Together. We move when the guards change. We crawl, we stay low, we stay quiet. If they see us, we run. No matter what, we stay side by side." Ari wiped her tears and gave a fierce nod. Her small hand slipped into his, squeezing tight. Together. The night grew darker as they waited, hidden in the shadows. Daniel's body trembled with weakness, but his mind stayed sharp. When the guards finally turned away, he whispered, "Now." They crawled across the ground, moving through the wreckage. Every sound made his heart race. The clink of armor, the hum of a drone, the crunch of boots. It all felt too close. Ori was quick, her small frame slipping easily between broken metal. Daniel followed slower, his strength failing. Sweat dripped from his forehead and every step felt heavier than the last. But when he looked at her, determination kept him moving. At last, they reached the edge of the supply crates. Daniel leaned against the metal, his breath ragged. Ori pulled at his sleeve urgently, whispering, "Food!" "Here." He nodded, too tired to speak. Ori climbed quickly, pulling down small boxes, her face glowing with triumph. Daniel managed a weak smile, but then a sharp voice rang out. One of the guards had turned. His glowing rifle lifted, pointing directly at them. Daniel's body moved without thought. He pushed Ori behind the crate, his arms spreading wide. His voice roared, loud and firm despite his weakness. "Run, Ori." Her silver eyes widened in terror. "No, Daniel!" The soldier shouted, calling others. Lights turned, rifles lifted. In that instant, the choice Daniel had feared was real. Would he sacrifice himself? Or would Ori refuse to leave? The air was heavy with the weight of their decision. And in that moment, between hunger and hope, between war and peace, the bond between human and alien child was tested like never before. The night was alive with danger. Lights from alien rifles cut through the ruins, glowing like sharp blades in the dark. Soldiers shouted as they rushed toward the supply crates. Their heavy boots struck the ground like thunder. Daniel stood in front of Ori, his body weak but unshaken. His chest rose and fell with ragged breaths, yet his eyes were steady. His broken rifle hung from his shoulder, useless, but his arms spread wide as a shield. "Ari," he whispered without turning his head. "Run." But she shook her head fiercely from behind the crate, silver eyes wet with tears. "No, I not leave you. Together!" The guards came closer, their weapons aimed. Daniel's heart pounded, but he did not move. He knew his body would not last. He knew this could be his final stand. But if Ori lived, if she could carry the truth, then his sacrifice would mean something. He turned slightly, enough to meet her eyes. "Ori, humans protect. That's who we are. Remember that." She trembled, her small body shaking, but her voice rose sharp with desperation. "And I protect too. You protect me. Now I protect you." The alien soldiers reached them. Their voices barked commands. One soldier grabbed Daniel by the arm, shoving him to the ground. His head hit the dirt, stars bursting in his vision. Ari screamed, trying to reach him, but another soldier caught her by the wrist. Daniel struggled, his body too weak to fight. He expected a rifle's blast. He expected death. But before it came, Ari's voice cut through the chaos. "Stop!" she cried in her own language, her voice high and fierce. The soldiers froze. Surprised, they turned their eyes to the small girl, who stood trembling but unyielding. Her silver eyes shone like fire. "This human," she shouted. "He give me food. He saved me. He is good." The soldiers blinked in shock. One muttered in disbelief. Another frowned, lowering his weapon slightly. Ari pulled her arm free, running to Daniel's side. She stood in front of him now, her arms spread wide, just as he had done for her. "You kill him, you kill me too," she cried. Daniel lifted his head weakly, watching her small frame stand against armored soldiers. His chest ached not from pain but from something deeper. Pride. The alien patrol leader stepped forward, his rifle still raised but his eyes narrowed. He looked at the child, then at the human lying on the ground. He spoke in a low voice to the others. Words Daniel could not understand, but their meaning was clear in the silence that followed. One by one, the rifles lowered. Ori's voice shook, but she continued. "He is not monster. Story is lie. Humans can give, can protect, can care." The soldiers looked uncertain. They had been told the same lies Ori once believed. But here was proof, standing before them. A child of their own kind defending the enemy with her life. The leader stared at Daniel for a long time, then at Ori. Slowly, he lowered his weapon fully and gave a sharp command. The others obeyed, stepping back. Daniel could hardly believe it. His vision blurred with exhaustion, but he saw Ori kneel beside him, her small hands gripping his own. "You safe," she whispered through tears. "I keep you safe now." He smiled faintly, though his lips were dry and cracked. "Looks like you're braver than me." She shook her head fiercely. "No, I only learned from you." The soldiers did not attack. They did not take Ari away. Instead, they left them there, perhaps shaken, perhaps unsure, but no longer willing to kill. When silence returned, Daniel leaned back against the crate, his strength nearly gone. Ari stayed beside him, refusing to let go of his hand. The stars appeared in the broken sky, dim but present. For the first time in weeks, Daniel felt something he had almost forgotten: hope. He looked at Ori, her silver eyes glowing softly in the night. "One human," he whispered, "one choice, can change everything." She nodded, pressing her forehead against his hand. "And one alien child believe. The war was not over. The world was still broken. But in the ruins of battle, a seed had been planted, not of fear, not of hate, but of trust. Ari would carry his story. She would tell her people the truth. That a human soldier gave his last meal not to save himself but to save a child. And Daniel, though weak, knew this. Even if he did not live to see it, that truth would spread. It would grow. It could change the future. The night grew quiet. The battlefield slept, and in the silence, one human and one alien child sat together. Safe, alive, and bound by something stronger than war. Not enemies. Not strangers, but family.